So tell me a little bit about your family and your upbringing.
I was Yorkshire, born in Yorkshire mining village. 2 brothers, older brothers and a sister. My mum and dad left school when they were 13 and 14. Dad was a miner, and mum worked in the youth system, and then until I was about 13, she used to work nights, and she used to pick Brussels sprouts and stuff in the mornings in the daytime. But she went off for this job interview and came back.
So I'm getting a sense of where the energy comes from here.
Yeah, she came back the phys ed teacher. My eldest brother had left school at 15. The next brother, who's Professor of Orthopaedics, he got through 11 plus. He was rapid streamed to the grammar school and off he was going. And so I went to the Quaker school, very aware that I'd been given an opportunity. Words where you grasp the nettle with both hands, yeah. And I thought, whoa. And it was a very special place. It was, I'd come from the comprehensive where I could run Quake for a very good reason. It was rough, it was a really tough environment. So then I was in this Quaker school with all pacifists and wore long cloaks like Harry Potter.
I mean, it's a funny kind of specialty to get into. It's kind of bifurcated. You've got people like yourself who are more in the public sector doing the burns, the major reconstructions and so on. And then you're in tandem with people who sort of have flicked back hair and are going to do breasts and nose jobs for the rest of their life.
Well, I know, it's interesting because I think you look at that extreme makeover or extreme rebuild, and I'm on that end of the spectrum. And I think there's a place for everybody. You can learn a lot from the meticulous cosmetic type surgery and the tissue handling techniques. Plastic surgeons are in the game of minimizing scars. It's good, solid, basic training. Because what I want to do is not eliminate, but eradicate scarring. Yeah. So it's a good starting point, very solid point from an education and training point of view.
You're talking about the scarring that's caused by extreme heat, by burns.
Yes, and it's certainly the top end spectrum from a scar point of view. Yeah, it's most aggressive.
And what's been learnt research-wise, and particularly sort of work that you've been done about that scarring and how to minimise that? Because that's a very different kettle of fish.
I think again, you've got to step back and you look at really solid basic principles. And what I try to do is, what do we know and what can we apply from what we know before we start to really sort of push the boundaries? We've got to have the basics and solid, things like infection control. Anybody who has a wound that is infected and a wound that isn't exactly the same, you will get a scar as opposed to no scar or reduced scar. So infection control is the top of the pile. Nutrition, tissue handling, tissue destruction, removing tissue that is damaged beyond its ability to regenerate and repair, because it continues that ongoing inflammatory process that continues that scarring process way beyond the surface healing. So looking at solid basic principles before you then start to look at, well, how can I actually use those principles and drive them forward? And speed to healing is the top of the pile.
So tell me about the first high percentage burns case you ever saw.
2 of them, but the adult person was in October 1992. And he was in excess of 90% body surface area burn in a 29-year-old. By the time he was in Royal Perth, which was just under 2 hours post-injury, he had had appropriate first aid, all the lines were in, he was beautifully set up. And I remember thinking, if anybody will survive this, he will. He was young, he was fit, and he did. But at a price, and it was a really long, hard road for him, his family, still is. As doctors, if we stand back and think about it, there are certain people that influence how our lives move. And for reasons that, beyond our control, our lives will be connected forever, and he's one of those. He changed my opinion on lots of things, including myself. Basically, it was a tough time, and I thought that we hadn't done well enough, and that we could do better. And I think at the time I thought I shouldn't possibly do this because I wasn't good enough. And then
you made a mistake?
No, not a mistake. But he was healed very quickly, and we used skin culture from Melbourne, and it was all working beautifully. And he got peripheral neuropathy of the critically ill and had basically dieback in his nerves, which almost all regenerated, but it took 9 months, and it was a long road.
So he was effectively paralysed?
For a period of time, yeah.
And the other case?
The other was a young boy who was now he's 22, and lives with the scars that have compromised his life. And I had pictures of him. his face, particularly over my desk, for about 4 years, working out how to fix it, and I haven't yet, but one day I will.
Presumably the memory of the Bali bombing is one of just an overwhelming workload very suddenly.
So it was a fascinating time because on many levels, again, one of those times where you learn a lot about people and about yourself. We're really aggressive, we really push hard early surgery and stuff, so people kept asking me, isn't this terrible, is it really hard? I said, no, it's not really hard, it's because we've trained for this, this is what we do. And when you're doing something, there's no greater motivator when you're actually doing and helping. And that's a real energy sort of maintenance sort of scenario, isn't it? You know, so you're going forward and you're doing all the time. By then, 2 people had died. The majority were healed. So with the 28, we had over 20 people healed by 3 weeks. It was the time when one of my colleagues said to me, you know, we've lived through something very special. We've lived through something we'll never see again, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
And it was just that positive energy that was generated out of something so negative, and it really changed again the way I looked at things. I thought, hang on, why do we only see such positive energy, so helpful, so people just putting themselves out of the way? That was the pleasure of 2005, was
This is when you were Australian of the Year.
was meeting people doing amazing things.
The research tradition is not strong in surgery, one would have to say.
I think, no, I'd have to say you're right, unfortunately, but I'm doing my very best to engage.
A single-handed war against it.
Well, I work with my colleague Suzanne Ray, who is going to be submitting her PhD in the bone marrow work that we've done by Christmas, and she's been a consultant with me now for 4 years. And we've got med students that are coming through. You know, I'm very keen that they understand that they can actually change the way we think and the way we practice. I don't believe that we will be practicing simple skin grafting into the future. If we could think, is that as good as we can get? Well, I don't think so. That cannot be a gold standard. Every skin graft I have ever done, however nice I've been able to do it or not, has left a scar. What the gold standard has to be the skin of that person, of that area, at that time of their life. Anything less means we will jump the hurdle. So we've got to raise the bar, we've got to bring our med students into that understanding that they don't have to believe all they're told.
So if we go forward 20 years and you look back, what is the must-have done?
It's really important to me that we make the links with people internationally and locally and nationally that have this in their heads, that have the understanding of the developmental neurobiology, that have the understanding of MRI PET scanning interpretation with people with wounds, and you know, understanding of acute pain pathways, so I can connect all this together to actually drive a healing, so that, you know, in 50 years' time we won't be skin grafting, we'll be driving regeneration. And it won't be I've recognised now, it will not be my surgical lifetime. I was over ambitious and over optimistic, I think, 20 years ago. So in 20 years' time I want to look back and be realistic and have actually made serious...
See a track forward.
Yeah, and serious contribution. It won't be the end game, but I want to be a contributor. That's the bottom line.
Fiona, thank you.
Thank you very much.